So I do have a topic that I want to chat about because it was one that plagues me, and I look to you for sage advice, John. And it's about how you go about tackling terrible tasks. See, I love alliteration. And there's different tasks that people will classify as terrible tasks. And in my case, it's things like sales prospecting. I really hate it. Doing my taxes. I really hate it. Those are terrible tasks to me. And and yet when you are an entrepreneur, the reality is that you have to deal with those. There isn't, particularly if you're just starting out and it's just you and you haven't got budget and you haven't got funding and you're starting a business and it's all you. You're responsible for sales, you're responsible for marketing, you're responsible for bookkeeping, you're responsible for banking. You are the only one, at least at the beginning, and then hopefully you can get some staff. And I find that particularly in my side hustles, which I liken to being a small business, I immediately gravitate to the things that I love doing. So one of my side hustles is selling t-shirts, and I love doing the design of it. So if I've got some spare time, I'll sit down in front of the computer and I'll start designing, and I'll think, oh, there's a concept, and I'll get completely lost in that for hours. But then I have to think, oh, I haven't done my bookkeeping, and I haven't done the bank reconciliation, I haven't done all of that, and I put them off all the time. Now, I've come up with my own method of tackling terrible tasks, and that is straight up head on. I give myself the reward of doing the things that I like, but only after I've done the things that I don't like. So in one of my other professional capacities, I have to do sales and outreach for the business that I've got there. So I set myself a task and say, after I've done 5 outreach emails, I'm allowed to go and work on something else that I prefer. What would you give as advice to people? How do you think people should go about tackling terrible tasks as an entrepreneur?
I think it is. It's certainly something I've experienced myself personally, and not many businesses who I've worked with have suffered, and particularly around the financial elements, some of the routine management of their business, and the proactive sales side of their business. So I think those are three really good topics, and I think there's kind of three elements of advice I would give. And the first is around trying to form habits for things. So it could be, you've just given a good example of a habit of making 10 proactive or 5 proactive sales calls. You will then reward yourself with something positive that you enjoy doing. That often the thought of doing a task is far outweighs the actual task and activity once you get underway with doing it.
You
And
are
so
100% right
having
on that one.
a habit which you lock into a certain time of day, and sometimes with a certain sort of routine, that's a really good system or way of getting stuck into things. So for example, you might say your day starts at sort of 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, that for the first 30 minutes, you're going to do these 2 or 3 things, or you're going to prepare and write 3 to 5 outreach emails, you're going to try and call, or you're going to do follow-up activities or that kind of thing. The second piece, I think, is around trying to systemize something. So often with sales or with managing finances, people will, again, put off activities. And I heard a wonderful phrase once, which was ABS, which it stands for anything but sales. So people come up with all these great things. I need to do this. I need to upgrade the website first. I need to optimize my sort of search engine criteria on Google. I need to do this, that, and the other. I need to print a new brochure, etc. And all those things may be worthwhile activities in themselves, but they're all avoiding the real activity of trying to sell or move things forwards. And so it's almost kind of writing down something that sticks in your mind, whether it's the ABS and say, I now need to get on with sort of tackling head on my ABS, sort of syndrome or affliction, and then you get stuck into doing something practical. One client I had who would come up with so many reasons why they couldn't go and do certain sales. I suggested them to create a simple questionnaire, go to the local station. They would go and ask people something, this is all related to their business, just ask if they could ask them 2 or 3 questions to help them to deliver a better business product. And when I next met, and out of that, if people were interested, that could be a potential prospect. When I met with them again, they could not believe they had got 4 or 5 new prospects through this, and it was
Wow.
only through half an hour's worth of work. I personally was not surprised in the slightest because they had a good offering. They were just reluctant to go and talk to people or try and get new sales or ideas. So that's the second piece about sort of really trying to focus or systemize. And the third piece is sometimes trying to chunk things together. So by that I mean that you would say, okay, I've got an activity to do here, and it may be around understanding some of the finances for the business. But by putting together your cash flow for the month, you've already logged all the invoices, any of the expenses. So you've then got a clearer picture of your both your cash position. You've got a clearer position of your tax position, so you know how much money you can take out, how much you have to allocate for reserving for any tax payments, whether it's VAT if you're eligible, or for your corporation tax or your personal tax, depending on how your business is structured. And so you kind of saying, okay, I've got several linked pieces here around managing the finances in my business, managing my tax position, sorting out invoices, but you chunk it all together by concentrating that around whether it's keeping your financial books completely up to date. When I first started out in business, I avoided this in the same way of anything but sales, and I got behind by months and months, with stacks. Those days, it was stacks of invoices and paper and documents and things of that nature.
Are you looking on
Um,
the floor behind me?
Looking at
Because I've got
you can see
exactly
see
that.
some of us sitting there, and but once I had created this kind of chunking up and systemizing it and put it into a slot and time when I knew that was the first thing I did of a day or a certain time of a week or whatever, I'm now completely up to date. I've kind of just refreshed the screen and I can see literally the live state of my business to the minute. What money is owed to me, what money's coming out. If I have a statement coming in, that would automatically reconcile completely. That's a complete opposite of where I was a few years ago, but it's as a result of those different elements. So I think that's how I would kind of give initial advice that every person who's kind of running, setting up and leading a business will have different pieces which they will not like doing. Some people may love the sales piece but hate the finances. Some may love the finances or the planning and the theoretical side, but when when it becomes practical, they don't like doing it. But it's about trying to put some systemization, trying to chunk things together, and allocating time slots, or knowing that you've just got to get on and move forward and do these activities.
Great advice as ever, John. Summed up as eat the frog. Go and,
A step at a time, a bite at a time, as they say.
go and Google
Every time you take a bite of it, it becomes less of a onerous situation. Even though the thought of eating a frog personally would be somewhat unappealing to me. But just listening to what I said, is there other thoughts that you have separate, or things that you would build on around that? Those sort of comments or advice?
no, so much of that resonates with me in terms of stages that I've gone through and the need to recognize the things that I don't like doing. And what you'd said right at the beginning there is you discover that once you actually start doing the things you don't like doing, it just becomes routine. And then it drops from this dread of doing the things I don't like doing to becoming business as usual. So I have a fractional role at the moment which involves a lot of sales outreach and prospecting, and a lot of pre-sales conversations. And 12 months ago, I used to dread it when the CEO would say to me, here's a list of prospects I want you to reach out to. I would have I used to break out in a cold sweat. I procrastinated. I put things off. I did everything possible to come up with an excuse of why I mustn't do that. And, a couple of days would go by and the CEO would go, I haven't been copied into any of your prospecting emails. Are all going well? And I'd go, it's because I haven't started them yet. Whereas now, literally before I got onto this call, I was busy sending out prospecting emails, and we're working through a list at the moment of quite a large pipeline, and no more dread. It's 12 months later, and because now I've got over the initial hurdle, confronted the fear of it, and started doing it as an everyday thing, it's now more conversational, and it's far easier for me to be able to get into the, hey, how are you doing? This is the latest, just wanted to give you an update, give me a call if you need. 12 months ago, I would agonize for 30 minutes over sending one email. Whereas now, I'll send something highly personalized without the use of AI in a very short space of time. I'm coming from a position of understanding that this really needs to be done, because if I don't do the sales, there won't be a business within the next couple of months. So yeah, habit building, and doing those things and building them into a routine, highly recommended, and a great way of tackling the terrible tasks.
I
Thank you,
agree. In
John.
fact, I think those are really good examples you've shared there. And I would just add one further to this chunking up. So one part of a business I've now sort of delegated. I have a company who provides a service to me, but I was managing a number of properties. And what I would find that what I started doing was grouping up things where if I needed to go to a property to do a viewing for a prospective new tenant to move in, at that moment I would meet with any tenants who had local issues at the property. I would coordinate any maintenance activities. I would do inspections. I would, take meter readings in the days before smart meters. I was collecting money for some of the utilities, like the washing machines, for example. So I'd empty the coin meters. My point is that these were a whole series of tasks related to different properties, but I would let a trigger of a prospective viewing group everything together. So rather than 5 or 6 trips in this example, it would be one trip with 6 grouped activities. And so within the space of half an hour, I'd actually covered everything related to that property off my to-do list. Now that's a property related example, but there's many business
Many
type
more you can do
examples
that.
where it's kind of chunking and
Well, it's more
clustering
bundling
sets of
together,
activity.
John. I'm going to correct you. It's more bundling together than chunking.
Bundling together, exactly. Clustering, bundling together, then
That's
chunking,
it.
that type of thing. But it's making, rather than saying this is now so many activities, it's going to cost me huge amounts of time and start putting things off. I would look for ways of actively compressing and grouping the
Yeah,
stuff together,
work it using your time far more efficiently. That's what it
using the
comes
time
down
more efficiently. I think that's a really important element, and that way you feel good about it. You cover a whole series of more activities, and you remove some of the barriers away from doing stuff. On a personal basis, I have a particular exercise routine that I do 3 or 4 times a week. On those days, I lay out my sports kit so that when I get up, literally, it's the first thing that I see. I try and remove any possible excuse or reason for deciding not to do something by making it easy to do things. If it's in a business environment, you've just been given the example. It would be, laying out the calls you were going to make the following day, either blocking out a time, listing, allocating 10 minutes per email or whatever it is. Having a template, having the list you're going to just systematically work through, rather than getting up and saying, I wonder who I'm going to speak to today. The more you can prepare in advance and remove any psychological reasons you could come up with to defer action, the better.
Excellent, John. We'll speak next time.